Happy Monday, everybody. MG here, MGCovers, bringing you a brand new sports handicapping video. Title of this video is a review of college football rankings for this past weekend, as well as a review of my NFL Power Rankings, which premiered for the first time this season on yesterday. A lot to get into and a lot to cover. Before we do that, as always, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, love to have you as a subscriber. There's a ton of content on my page, on my channel. Access to NFL football playlist, how to handicap the NFL. There's 3 parts to that playlist. Really good playlist if you haven't watched that already. Also a ton of content on handicapping college football as well as soccer, which we're currently handicapping as well. If you want to follow me on social media, you get a ton of content, a ton of value. Follow me on social media. I'm MGCovers, covers spelled with a Z. I give out a lot of nuggets on Instagram story. In fact, I gave out the Arkansas game. Didn't personally play it. There was some reverse line movement maybe an hour or two before that game. I actually posted it on my storyline, so I basically gave you that play. And, of course, Arkansas not only covered, but they actually won that game. So, ton of content. MGCovers. Follow me on Instagram. All right, so let's dive into this video. I'm super excited about giving you, reviewing this stat model for college football. And I often get asked a lot of times, you know, what's my best sport? I may have talked about this last week, and without a doubt, it's the college football. Well, actually, the NFL football model. And then I took the NFL model that I've had a lot of success with over the years, converted into a college football model. I actually did it for the first time last year, and have had amazing results. So what I want to do before we dive into that, let's take a look at the actual plays that I had in college football yesterday. Well, actually Saturday. Move this down here. We had 5 plays. Yeah, 5 plays total. One was a push. Actually went 4-0. So we had a huge day on Saturday. It actually started on Friday. If you look there at the very bottom, we had Wake Forest. We played Wake Forest on the money line. That cashed plus 148. We played UNC Charlotte -3. That was a push. And then the 3 other plays from Saturday, we had Baylor, cashed them on the money line at plus 215. Played Army -7.5. That was a win. Also played Western Michigan. Got them at -2.5. That was a blowout win. They won 23-3. So for college football over the weekend, we went 4-0. Now, let's dive back into college football power rankings. And the reason I'm going to show you this is to show you how accurate this model is. Most of the people that wager on sports are totally clueless when it comes to sports betting, and simply because they do not have a legit stat model that gives them an unbiased line. So when you look at, if you watch this video for the first time, this is my stat model, which means there's no bias factored into this. This is simply a math problem that is computed from the stats that I use, and it punches out and it shoots out a number, and that's the number with no subjectivity factored into that. It's 100% objective, so it gives you an unbiased line that you can compare to the sports book. The sports book line is full of bias, and I'll talk about that as we go through this video. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at all of the games that have at least a 5-point differential between my line and the sportsbook line. The reason we do that establishes enough difference, and we count that as value, meaning there's enough discrepancy between my line and the sportsbook line to consider that a potential play. And the way I teach, we would handicap that game even further. But for the sake of this video, we're going to simply just look at the win-loss percentage of my power rankings compared to the sportsbook line on games that have at least a 5-point differential. So let's start out taking a look at the Marshall-App State game. That game was on Thursday night. App State was -7.5. Our line was -11, so it didn't meet that criteria. Middle Tennessee, Charlotte, that was the one that we actually played. My line was 13.5. The Charlotte line was -3, and that was a push. I want to give you a really quick lesson here. I think this will actually help you in your handicapping. I actually played this game on Thursday night. I played it at the sports book on Thursday night. The game was actually Friday night at 6:30. Now, of course, we had huge differential. My line was 13.5. Sportsbook line was -3. The reason I played it early was because of this. what I thought would happen was I thought that the line was -3. At the time I played it, Charlotte was a non-public team, which means the majority of people were playing Middle Tennessee. What I anticipated was going to happen in the next 24 hours, that line was going to bump to 3.5. So the reason, and that would be huge, because then not only would Charlotte would have to win basically by a touchdown in order for that wager to cash. So what I did was I went ahead and played it early, anticipating that it would move to 3.5. So in the event that it did, I would have locked in that 3. And if I had to do it all over again, I would still handicap that the same way, even though that line never made it to 3.5. In fact, it went the other direction. It went down just a tad to 2.5, and then ended up closing at 3 at the majority of books. So, and Charlotte ended up being a public team, and of course they push. But again, if that same scenario would present itself, I would still have played it the same way. All right, moving along to Wake Forest. Wake Forest was -10. My line, sportsbook line, was +3.5. They had them as the underdog. Ended up cashing that one. Played Wake Forest on the money line. And another point about tickets, again, I'm a huge advocate, the way I teach, not to play public teams. You can see here Wake Forest was getting the majority of tickets there at 60%. But when you're playing the money line, I do not give consideration to whether a team is a public team or non-public team, because this percentage here is factored on the spread line, not the money line. Now, you can get percentages on the money line, but the majority of people that play on the money line for college football and NFL are sharps like myself, so that number can be skewed, which is why, again, I don't put much stock into whether a team's public or non-public. It's just a matter of whether or not that I think that team is going to win, and if I'm getting enough value on that money line. In this particular case, we were. So anyway, so that was a win. So moving along, let's dive into the next one, UNLV, Fresno State. This is a big problem with biased lines. You can see Fresno State was ranked. A lot of the general public put too much stock into these rankings. And the way to look at rankings, and let's start to think about this. How does a team get ranked? They get ranked by voters. Who votes on these teams? It's sports writers. It is not sharps like myself. It is sports writers. Are sports writers good handicap? No, they are not. They know a ton about sports, but they are terrible at handicapping, large majority. There may be a few, but I mean, they know a lot about sports, but they are not a sharp like myself. So that is a biased ranking, and you have to be careful, because a lot of times the general public will buy into that line. And in this particular case, it looks like the majority did play UNLV getting 80% of the tickets. But you can see here, our line was 12. The actual line was +30, so getting a ton of points with UNLV, and of course, they actually won that. Okay, so let's move on to Saturday's games. I'm going to be talking a lot in this video, so excuse me while I get some water. All right, so the big one here, next game we're going to look at, well, before we get to that Wisconsin Notre Dame, we had a few in here. Ohio Northwestern. Ohio was getting +14, +1.5 my line, so that was a loss. Florida International, they were getting 11.5. We had them at +5, so that was 6.5 point differential. So that was a win. Notre Dame, Wisconsin, that was the big game. We were getting 16.5. That was my line, -16.5. The actual sports book had them at -6. I'm going to talk briefly why I did not play that game. Wisconsin had only played 2 games, right? So the model only had 2 weeks of data, which what ideally this model needs is at least 3 games, and that's what I use for college football model, is the last 3 games. So not having that 3rd game sort of skews the model a little bit, just not enough data really to accurately trust this particular line here. And one important note when you're handicapping, I said this on Instagram, I think the majority of people that played Wisconsin really did believe that that game was at home. Maybe not everybody, but I believe there was a large majority of people that wagered thinking Wisconsin was home, because that's how it was listed at the sports book. But that game was actually played at Soldier Field. Notre Dame, it was close there for a while. Notre Dame ended up blowing them out. All right, so I still, just for the sake of this video, we count that as a loss there. So moving along to Southern Methodist, Texas Christian. SMU was plus 9.5. They were plus 14 in my book. I mean, my line, so we count that as a loss. Army, Miami, Ohio, that was the game we actually played. Where is that? Let's see here. Yeah, bear with me because, okay, here we go. Yeah, Miami of Ohio. Majority of the public was on Miami of Ohio there. That line was, ended up closing 7.5 and 8. Again, we had it at minus 15, so good differential there in favor of Miami. Miami, of course, won that one. Boise State, Utah State. We had Utah State as the favorite. Boise State was the favorite at Sportsbook. Ended up blowing out Utah State as a weight, so we'll count that as a loss. Georgia, Vanderbilt. We had Vanderbilt minus 5. And again, I sort of chuckle at that line, but the importance of having this, again, this is a non-biased line. And again, it looks weird to see Vanderbilt minus 5, but again, I do not alter my stat model. Whatever that stat model says, I simply post that as the number, and then I make my decision based on several other factors. But obviously didn't play this one. Georgia State covered convincingly. I mean, Georgia covered convincingly. Absolute blowout. Georgia may be the best team in college football. San Jose State, Western Michigan. We actually played this particular game. Western Michigan was minus 14.5. The books had this game at, let's see if we can find it here real quick. Yep, there we go. Western Michigan was only minus 2.5 to minus 3, and you can see they were a non-public team, so that gave us the green light to go ahead and play Western Michigan. And one important factor, I'm going to do a coaching video on handicapping strength of schedule. Western Michigan hung 44 points on Pittsburgh. That definitely weighed in my decision to move forward playing Western Michigan because they had been tested against an ACC opponent. Hanging 44 points for Western Michigan on an ACC team is pretty impressive. So that was definitely a play, and they ended up blowing out San Jose State. So that was a win. Next one, Texas State, Eastern Michigan. We had Texas State as the favorite. They ended up losing. They were plus 7.5. Wyoming and Connecticut. A lot of people got sucked in on this one here. Wyoming and Yukon. Let's see if we can find it moving down. Where is it at? Where's it at? Yeah, bear with me. My eyes aren't that great, even though I have my contacts in. There we go. Connecticut was getting 31. Yeah, actually, the public was right on this one. A lot of people piled on Connecticut. They were getting 31.5 points. My line had them at plus 13, so huge value there in favor, huge differential in favor of Connecticut. Connecticut won that one. And then the big one, Clemson and NC State. Just like last week, a lot of people laughed at this line. My power rankings minus 10. Hey, that's 2 weeks in a row. They were accurate, more accurate than the sports books with regards to Clemson. Clemson just extremely overvalued. And again, that just goes to show how much of the reason having an unbiased stat model, because if you didn't see that NC State was minus 10, it would be very difficult to look at the line where Clemson's the number 9 team in the nation, minus 10.5. Be very difficult not to consider Clemson because you have all that bias factored into Clemson and the fact that they're the number 9 team in the nation, when in reality, statistically, NC State was a better team, and of course, they won that one outright. Next one, Iowa State and Baylor. This is another one that we played. Iowa State was minus 7. Again, they were ranked. Going back to the point I made earlier, a lot of bias factored into a team that's ranked. More times than not, general public will pile on that team simply because they're ranked. Baylor won that one. Won it convincingly. Iowa State made a charge coming back there late. But Baylor won, and we had them at minus 12 in our power rankings. Texas, San Antonio, we had them minus 9.5. They went on the road as underdogs, won outright against Memphis. That was a win. Georgia State and Auburn. You see this a lot when you have like a team, Georgia State. I think they're in the Sun Belt, right? On the road playing Auburn. Let's see if we can scroll down to find this one here. Maybe we must scroll back up. There it is, Georgia State. They were 27.5-point dogs and only 11.5-point dog via my line. And, of course, so they covered there, so that would be counted as a win. Kansas Duke, we had Duke at only minus 11.5. They were 16.5, getting plus 16.5, so that was actually a loss via our power rankings. Arkansas State, Tulsa. Tulsa was minus 5. We had Arkansas State at plus 5, so getting a really good differential there. They actually covered, getting 14.5 points, so that counts as a win. Louisiana Lafayette, Georgia Southern, we had Louisiana Lafayette at minus 9, and you could see they actually, wait a minute, I might have calculated this wrong. Let me go back and look at this. Yeah, this was actually a loss. My bad. I'll correct that. So they were minus 9, and they were, yeah, wait a minute. That was a loss. So that should have been that was a loss. My bad there. Point being, we had them we had Georgia Southern at plus 9. They were getting plus 14.5, so that will be calculated as a loss. All right, move along to the Tennessee-Florida game. Let's take a look at, scroll down to it. Whoops, scroll back up. Tennessee, Florida, where you at? There we go. Tennessee getting plus 19, plus 18.5. My line was plus 12.5, so that was a loss. North Texas had a lot of clients on this particular game. North Texas was minus 3 via our line. Sportsbook line was, I'm pretty sure they were plus 7. Let's see if we can find them somewhere. Yep, there they are. They were actually plus 9.5. So they actually covered, even though they were a public team. So that counts as a win. Kentucky, my Gamecocks, tried to tell people Kentucky was the better team here. They absolutely destroyed South Carolina on both sides of the ball. Disappointing for my Gamecocks, but if we can find this one. This game went off at 7 o'clock. Let's see, where is it? There it is, Kentucky. Kentucky was minus 4.5. Our line was minus 10.5, so that was a win. West Virginia, Oklahoma. I am a big Neil Brown fan. The guy that's at West Virginia, just a really good coach. Knew he would have these teams prepared. Almost played this one. West Virginia was getting plus 9.5 via our line. They were getting plus 17.5 at the sports book. Made it close against number 4 Oklahoma. So that was a win for my power rankings. UAB, Tulane. A lot of clients played this one on the money line. UAB was minus 7.5 via my line. They were getting plus 2.5 at the sports book. And just a basic tip here, lined open at plus 4, ended up closing at plus 2.5. So you had line movement in your favor towards UAB. And of course, the way I teach, not a lot of value in getting the points. Much better off playing that on the money line. And you could have gotten it at plus 120 on the money line instead of taking the points. Moving along, Air Force and Florida Atlantic. You can see here, Air Force was minus 3.5. They were minus 12. My line, so that was a win. Indiana, big favorites via my line, minus 15. They did not cover against Western Kentucky, so that was a loss. New Mexico, Texas, El Paso. Let's see, Texas, El Paso was plus 2.5. Same deal. You would play them on the money line. My line was minus 2.5, so they cover. South Florida, huge underdogs. Public actually got this one right. 83% of the tickets on South Florida. You can see my line was 10. You were getting 23.5, so that was a plus 13 differential. That was a win. Arizona getting plus 29.5 points. My line was 11.5, so that was a win. So if you add up all of these wins via my stat model, you end up, it comes to, we'll just do this out here. You get 20 wins. Let's add this up. Let's make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 wins. Okay, I was off on the other one. So we had 19 wins via the stat model. And again, I do not teach this way, meaning like I would not blindly play this much volume. I'm just simply showing you this to show you the how accurate this stat model is. So we go over here to the losses. Let's take a look at the losses. Let's add those up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's it. So the stat model had 19 wins and 10 losses. Okay. So let's see what percentage that is. Let's add this up. So we're going to take this number 19 divided by the total number, which would have been 29. So the stat model, my stat model, with no handicapping, just looking at the games with value, hit 65% winners. Guys, I can go ahead and tell you this. There's nothing else out there that's better than this. You might find somebody, a lot of people sell a lot of garbage this time of the year, but there's nothing that you're going to find that's going to be better than this. And I'm not that naive to think that there might be somebody that has a model that's maybe as good, but there's nothing that's going to be better than this when you just look at the stat model itself to hit 65% accuracy on teams that cover for any type of model. That's absolutely incredible. Now, again, I would not teach handicapping this way or wagering this way to play 29 games on the Saturday, to simply blindly play games with value. The way I would teach is actually, if you go over here back to the way I actually played, which means you're going to take those games with value and then handicap from those games and pick a handful of, 4 or 5 or whatever the amount is. In the particular case where I only played 5 games. Okay. But again, I show you that to simply show you how incredibly accurate this model is. And the big point I want to make here is that majority of people do not have access to a stat model like this. And the reason I actually started this and offered my stat model to the general public was for that reason. So you can be totally clueless about handicapping, building a model. You don't have to build a model. You can have access to this model and immediately be better than the large majority of people that wager on college football. Because again, 98% of the people that wager on sports end up losing. And there's the reason, because again, they're subject to this bias line that you see over here from the sports books without any model to distinguish between the two. This is filled with bias lines, a lot of subjectivity, whereas this line over here is an accurate model hitting 65% just on the games with value. So if you want access to that model, we'll talk about that at the end of this video, but absolutely incredible. And to note, right now I am currently the #1 handicapper at my at Sports Watch Monitor, which is the monitoring service I use. So we are the #1 handicapper. It'll be difficult to maintain that position throughout the season, but hopefully we can do that. All right, so now the next step is to shift gears. We're going to look at the NFL model from Sunday. We're going to do the same exact thing. It's a little bit different the way that I calculate value, which means what I do is college football, we look for a 5-point differential. In NFL, we look for a 3-point differential because the games are a lot tighter. All right, so we're not going to include this Carolina-Houston game. Simple reason, Houston, all those stats included stats with Tyrod Taylor. Obviously, they started rookie quarterback, so we're not going to count that game at all. And also, too, realize this, too. The NFL stat model, I use the last 4 games for NFL. But in this particular week 2, we only have 2 weeks of data. So again, it's not going to be as accurate as I want it to be, even though you'll probably be surprised how accurate it was with only 2 weeks of data. So let's start to dive through this. Do the same thing here. Arizona, Jacksonville. Arizona was minus 8.5, minus 7.5. So we had, my line was minus 14. Arizona wins that one. Indianapolis, Tennessee. My line was minus 5. Indianapolis was plus 5. So that was a loss. Baltimore, Detroit. Huge letdown game for Baltimore. Baltimore was minus 7.5. They were minus 9 via my power rankings. So again, that wasn't a game that we would count because there is no value. Meaning there wasn't at least a 3-point differential. So, all right, Washington, Buffalo. Buffalo was minus 7. They were minus 12, my line. So we had value on the Buffalo side. So that was a win. New Orleans, New England. New England was the favorite via my line, minus 3.8. So basically minus 4. However, they were only minus 3 at the sports book. So not enough value to consider that a potential play. And the big one here, Chargers. Kansas City's always overvalued. Public actually got this one right. 75% of the tickets on the Chargers at plus 7. They actually won outright, which is what my power rankings said. So that was a win for the power rankings. Atlanta Giants, 2 really bad teams right here. My power rankings had Atlanta as the favorite or basically even. So that gave Atlanta a 2.5 to 3 point differential there. So that was a win. Coming to here, Chicago, Cleveland. My power rankings actually had Chicago as the favorite. Justin Fields actually started there, but we'll still count that one as a loss as Cleveland pretty much destroyed Chicago as a 7.5 point favorite. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, that was a loss as well. Had Pittsburgh minus 5.5. Technically, might say that was less than 3, but we'll go ahead and count it as 3, considering if you round the 5.5 off. 5.8 to 6. Vegas, this was actually one we actually played this early in the week. Miami was out without Tua there. Figured we'd get a lot of value on the Vegas side. They were up by 2 scores, 6 months to go. Did not hold on to that lead, so therefore they lost. So that counted as a loss on my power rankings. Jets in Denver. My line was 12. The line was actually minus 10.5, but Denver did cover. So that was a no play via my power rankings. Rams, Tampa Bay. Rams minus 2 via my line. They were pick or a plus 1, so we'll count that as a win via my power rankings. Minnesota plus 2 to plus 3.5 at the sports books. They were minus 2 via my line, won outright there. And of course, Green Bay was San Francisco was minus 2. You look at the sports book line was minus 3, so that was a no play, and Green Bay won that outright. So we actually review the win-loss record there for my power rankings. Arizona would be a 1, so we're 1-1. That was a loss there. So, Arizona was a win, so 1-0. That was a loss, so that's 1-1. Win that one, that was 2-1. No play for the New Orleans. This was the win, so that was 3-1. Atlanta wins, that was 4-1. And we come over here, we take some losses here. So we lose this one, 4-2, lose this one. Wait a minute, did I do that right? Let's back up. My bad. Okay, Arizona was a win, so that was 1-0. Lose this one, we're 1-1. Okay. Win this one, 2-1. Chargers was a win, so that's 3-1 on the power rankings and 4-1 with Atlanta. My bad. All right, so we're 4-1. We lose this one, so now we're 4-2. Lose this one, 4-3. Lose this one, we're 4-4. Win this one, we're 5-4. Win this one, Seattle, we are 6-4. So 6-4, that's 60% power rankings, again, with no subjectivity factored in. Again, I do not recommend playing this way. I'm simply showing you how accurate the NFL model is. Now, the Philadelphia game for tonight, just to give you a quick preview, we have Dallas minus 9 and the line has been going back and forth between -3 to -3.5. So there is value in Dallas. So even if we lose that one, we're still going to hit. If it ends up being 6-5, my power rankings will end up 55%. So again, the whole point of this video is showing you how accurate the college football model is along with the NFL model. And you can go from totally clueless about handicapping to having a professional sports bettors model for only $49.95 per month. That gives you access to the entire model. You also get access to all of my coaching videos on the website. We have 36 coaching videos just this year. You get access to everything that I've recorded previous to that. If you want to join and get access to the power rankings and also my plays, we're on the biggest run of my career. We lost the Raiders game. We're on a 14-2 run overall. Incredible run. That's the best run I've ever had in my sports betting career since 2015. You get access to all of my plays for $99 per month. If you want to join for the entire year, you save about $600. That's $499. That gives you access to everything for $500 for the entire year. I'm completely out of breath. Hopefully you like this video. If you got any, if you want to see me do a video on a particular topic related to sports betting, post that in the comments below, and we will talk to you guys soon. Peace.